So this one's going to be about negativity, and it is also going to be about how to tackle negativity and how to also kind of deal with negativity. But there's going to be more after the intro, as always. And with that being said, hello, welcome back to the next episode of the Self-Development with Tactics podcast. And I'm really looking forward to recording this episode because I think it is something incredibly important to talk about negativity and negative emotions and negative things in general. I do think it is just important and it is just also necessary. But before I even go through the episode, there's a few things that I'm willing to talk about or that I'm willing to address. The first one is, if you are on the podcast right now, but you kind of feel like, well, having a YouTube video or having a video where I'm also seeing this dude going through the articles would be nice, then please check out the first or the second article, not article, but link in the description or in the show notes. And if you're on the podcast or on a YouTube video and you feel like, well, listening to the podcast would actually be kind of amazing, then please go down into the description, and I think it should be like the first or the second one. I'm not quite sure. It is either the first one or the second one. And if you're just clicking on a podcast link, then you're going to be led to a page where you can also choose where to listen to the podcast on, which might be Spotify or TuneIn or whatever it might be. You can choose there. The second thing is the notes. As you're then going to see in this article that I'm going to go through, or these, well, it is actually book notes. Well, it is an article or blog post, whatever it might be for you. I've highlighted certain parts in this book notes article from Derek Sivers that I found like, well, I do not want to go through everything because I do just not want to, gonna go through everything because I'm gonna pick these things that I think are important or that I think are necessary to talk about. And these things are also gonna be down in this PDF, or they are also going to be highlighted and then therefore also in a PDF, which is in the description. You can download it and print it and everything is for free. And yeah, the last one is only for personalization. If you do just want to have your personal basically experience with the podcast, then please add some background music. The link is the third one it's actually the fourth link. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the episode. So, as you can see on the left side of the screen, there is the book notes article by the Derek Sivers or Sivers.com site and or by Derek Sivers. And the book is called When Fhings Fall Apart by Pema Chödrön. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. It is actually an Ö, as it is called in German at least. But yeah. But before we even go through the book notes, I do want to talk about her because I think it is kind of necessary, or it is kind of also relatively interesting to talk about what she is, but who she is, what she was doing, and all those things. So Pema Chödrön, or however you're actually pronouncing it, I'm not quite sure. Bone Deidre or Deidre, whatever, Bloomfield Brown, on July the 14th, 1936, is an American Tibetan or Tibetan Buddhist. She's an ordained nun, former archare of Shambhala Buddhism, and disciple of Gygyam Trungpa Rinpoche. Chödrön has written several dozen books and audiobooks, and he is principal teacher at Gampo Abbey in Nova Scotia, Canada. Not quite sure. Chödrön was born Deidre Bloomfield Brown in 1936 in New York City. She attended Miss Porter's School in Farmington, Connecticut, and grew up in a New Jersey farm with an older brother and sister. She obtained a bachelor's degree in English literature from Sarah Lawrence College and a master's in elementary education from the University of California, Berkeley. So, she was actually also married a bunch of times, or actually 2 times, and also then divorced 2 times, and yeah, she's also having kids, and also I think 3 grandchildren as far as I remember. But yeah, that's with her. So let's actually go through the book, because I think it is actually a pretty important book, because it is mainly, as also Derek Sivers states in this small little kind of summary, profound philosophy on facing the negative emotions head on and getting to know them well, instead of trying to avoid them or escape. Because I just think, as I've been just talking about before, I do really believe that negative emotions and understanding negative emotions and being able to deal with those negative emotions is something that's incredibly valuable and incredibly also necessary to just having a happy life. Because of course, if these negative emotions are, if they are bigger than you are in the relationship between you and them, then it's not going to be a good end. It's not going to be a good relationship, and it's also not going to be that of a good life, I would say, at least in my point of view. Yeah, therefore I think I should be going through it, and maybe it is helping somebody. This is actually what I'm really hoping for, that it is going to help somebody change something, do something better, feel better. It would actually be amazing. It would actually really be amazing if I'd be able to just do something like that. But yeah, so let's see. The first one. My notes. Fear is a natural reaction to moving closer to the truth, which might or might not be the truth, but I guess it kind of also makes sense, because sometimes the truth is scary and sometimes the truth is... I do not want to say that you're going to fear the truth and that you also are fearing kind of the way to the truth, but, the way might be kind of a not pretty clean one. Maybe it is dirty. Maybe there's going to be some obstacles and whatnot. Things become very clear when there is nowhere to escape, because we do just then have to really see and recognize and think what this position or situation that we are in really is now. Because there's a lot of ways, and I think this is one of the keys there. There's a lot of ways to just view things, there's a lot of different perspectives that you can take. You can either just, there's a lot of perspectives, but for example, you could be just having a very negative perspective on a lot of things, If it is raining, and it was actually just raining because I just came home at 9:15 p.m. So it is actually fairly late, but I came home and it was raining. And I thought it is actually pretty beautiful that it is raining. And of course I could also be it is raining. I don't like that because I'm getting wet and because I do just have to hold my umbrella and it is not that nice. And my school bag is also getting wet and all those things. I could be kind of complaining about that. But I choose to not do that because there's actually no kind of sense behind complaining after the weather or complaining about the weather, because it is what it is and it is not going to change anything about it. Even if I'm just complaining my whole life long, it's probably not going to really change the weather. He said he was determined to get rid of his negative emotions. All his meditation had been nothing but further separation and struggle. He really accepted wholeheartedly that he was angry and jealous, that he resisted and struggled and that he was afraid. He accepted that he was also precious beyond measure, wise and foolish, rich and poor, and totally unfathomable, which actually means, because I don't actually know, inscrutable, incomprehensible, enigmatic, incalculable, and so on. Intimacy with fear caused his dreams to collapse and the world around him finally got through. Yes, I know, and I think it is actually kind of a really, really, really close bond with the Thingaboth. Is it a Thingaboth? Yeah, I do believe that if you're just seeing the maybe situation as it really is, then there's not going to be a lot of fear. If you truly realize that when it is dark, that there is just no photons. I think it's actually photons around, which is kind of the only reason why it is dark, because there is no light, which is photons. It is getting kind of clear. It is getting kind of not scary. It is getting kind of not really fearful or fear-able or something. I'm not quite sure. But I do just think that if you realize certain things, then you're probably going to change your mind. And I think it is also about perspective, and it is also about just trying to figure these things out. And maybe also getting the information, because I do think, it just depends on how you see things, on how you are able to recognize things, whether it is through podcasts, through information in general, or it is just through thinking, because some people really like to think on themselves and just get to know the world and get to know them on their own. Become familiar with fear, move closer. And by moving closer, you're probably going to see that whatever you're fearing is not, you should not really fear it, because it is kind of normal, like living in the dark or being in the dark or fearing the dark. Nothing is what we thought. Emptiness, mindfulness, fear, compassion, love, Buddha nature, courage, not what we thought. These are code words for things we don't know in our minds, but any of us could experience them. These are words that point to what life really is when we let things fall apart and let ourselves be nailed to the present moment. Is it really the case? Did it really fall apart? Something that I do want to point out is that we don't know what happiness is. It's something that's pretty funny, and I don't know where I'm having it from, because I've somewhere read it, but I'm not quite sure. We don't know what happiness is, but we clearly know the feeling or what it is like when we are unhappy. This is really something that we can just tell. You can say, okay, I'm happy when I'm smiling all day long. Well, you can also do that, but are you then really happy only because you're doing that? Is it just really kind of correlated to the action of smiling? I don't know, but we clearly know when we are unhappy. Something is wrong. Okay, I'm unhappy. something is not going the right way, okay, I'm unhappy. Maybe of course there are some other feelings as well that could be in the position of unhappiness, especially in these examples that I've given you right now. But often it's just unhappiness. Often it is just a way of how we are expressing things, I guess, through just not being happy or just calling it not being. Then there's actually something that I didn't really agree with, I'd say. Not knowing is the most important thing of all. We don't know anything, and we can call something bad, we can call something good, but really we just don't know. Which is something that I'm just not getting it. Maybe I do just not understand it, but I do think that there is good and there is bad. And I think we can clearly decide whether something is good or whether something is bad, but I'm not quite sure. Tell me. If you just think about it in a different way, please hit me up on social media, or just if you're on a YouTube video, comment it down. I would really appreciate that, because for me it is like, well, there is good and there is bad, even though it is something that's completely subjective, and some people might think, well, this is good and this is bad, and some people might think the complete opposite, and so it is like, what is now really good and what is now really bad. Thinking that we can find some lasting pleasure and avoid pain is a hopeless cycle that goes around and round endlessly and causes us to suffer greatly. Yes, because there is always going to be some things that are going to be painful. Maybe these things turn out to be something good if we are changing our perspective. But there's always going to be something kind of bad. There's always going to be something that's not all right. Especially if you just really, really, really focus on that. If you really focus on bad things, on negative things, you're going to see them. And you're going to see a lot of them. So maybe not choosing to focus on these things might be a pretty good idea. Disappointment, embarrassment, irritation, resentment, anger, jealousy, and fear, instead of being bad news, are actually very clear moments that teach us where it is that we are holding back. They teach us to perk up and learn when we feel we would rather collapse and back away. Yes, because negative feelings are important and we shouldn't neglect them. We shouldn't just kind of ignore them. We shouldn't just kind of, okay, this is a bad emotion. I'm just letting it be what it is. It's probably just something negative I do not really have to care about. But you should, because they're telling you some things. If you're feeling bad in a certain situation, maybe it is just showing you that you might be fearful, that there's something might be wrong that you do not really like, that you might not like a person, that you might not like whatever you're doing, when it is about a job, for example. Negative emotions are incredibly important and we shouldn't be neglecting them, and we shouldn't be definitely not ignoring them. We should really be thinking about them and working with them and trying to understand them. Events and people in our lives who trigger our unresolved issues could be regarded as good news. They could be. And of course, you could also just cut them out because you think they are negative and whatnot. But I do think it is not about negative people there. I think it is about people that are showing you what it really is like, and that are getting you back to your quote-unquote neutral state, I would say. Because of course, there might be some people that are only telling you some good things, that you're good, that you are amazing, that you do something in the right way, that you did something in a good way. There's also people that are saying to you when something didn't or wasn't really right that you did. And I think she's referring to such people, actually. And I think it is something that's incredibly valuable if you're such a person and if you're having such people around you, because they're just telling you the truth. You don't know, or you don't also need somebody that is only telling you that you're doing everything good and whatnot, like constructive criticism, I would say, and actually feedback, because I do not really like just criticism as such. I don't really believe that it is like, well, yeah, never mind. We don't need to try to create situations in which we reach our limit. They occur all by themselves. Which is, by the way, also something that I'm not quite sure about, since what about workouts, There I'm also just trying to reach my limits. And I'm just creating these situations. It's not like, okay, it is there and whatnot, and it is like they are occurring, but I'm doing it. It is just what I do. So I'm not quite sure about this. I do just also see that you shouldn't be trying really hard to get yourself in a really difficult situation and whatnot. But yeah, we use all kinds of ways to escape. All addictions stem from the moment when we meet our edge and we just can't stand it. Yeah, there's a little bit more to that, but yes, addictions. We really try to escape things through addictions, whether it is our smartphone, whether it is drugs, whether it is something else. It is actually a bad habit, and there's actually, as James Clear says, there's two reasons why we're having habits in general, whether it is something good or whether it is something bad. I think it is more or less about something bad, but it is either about dealing with stress or it is about dealing with boredom. And I mean, addictions, what might it be all about? Stress is actually, for me, I think stress is a pretty interesting word, since it doesn't really only incorporate or mean stress as, okay, I'm stressed out and whatnot, but it could also be like, well, my girlfriend is angry and therefore I'm stressed. It is also, I think, this way. It's like just a really, really, really broad word, I would say. It is so good to meditate every single day and continue to make friends with our hopes and fears again and again. Yes, because then we see that it isn't that bad. When we see our indulging and our repressing clearly, they begin to wear themselves out. Wearing out is not exactly the same as going away. After a while, we stop struggling and relax in our daily lives, because it is just only wearing out. It's not going away, but we are able to deal with it. We are able to work with it. As each breath went out and dissolved, there was the chance for all that had gone before to die and to relax instead of panic. Just stepping back and relax. It is something good. Deep breath, step back and relax. He said it was never a good idea to struggle in meditation. So if our legs or back were hurting, we were told it was fine to move. However, it became clear that by working with proper posture, it was possible to become far more relaxed and settled in one's body by making very subtle adjustments. I'm always actually struggling with that, because not always, but most often I'm just trying to find a really comfortable spot in the first place. And even though it might not always be like the quote-unquote correct one, like a straight back and upright and all those things, it's not going to be the case. Really not. It's completely the opposite. But it is working for me. So yeah. Meet whatever arises with curiosity and don't make it such a big deal, whether it is something good or something bad, because if you are in the middle, then whatever is happening, you're going to be in the middle. 3 kinds of awakening. Awakening from the dream of ordinary sleep, awakening at death from the dream of life, and awakening into full enlightenment from the dream of delusion. And I really like the last one. The way to dissolve our resistance to life is to meet it face to face. When we feel resentment because the room is too cold, we could meet the cold and feel its iciness and its bite. There's no cure for hot and cold. They will go and they will go on forever. Probably, yeah. But I'm not quite sure about that either. Really not. But I think it is something that's quite interesting, and it might also help somebody that is just listening. Being preoccupied with our self-image is like being deaf and blind. It is like standing in the middle of a vast field of wildflowers with a black hood over our heads. It is like coming up a tree of singing birds while wearing earplugs. Yes, because you might be seeing something different if you're not just viewing yourself as a specific person. If you're just not viewing yourself as a strict person, as you're viewing yourself as a very sporty person, maybe, something like that. I think it is kind of also like, I am this is my identity, and therefore I do just have to act in this way or in that way. You could also be going in that way, I'd say. But yeah, with that being said, I think it's actually been one of the best episodes that I've been recording in quite some time. And also one of the most fun ones. I might just be going through more book summaries, I guess. I think it is something that's quite cool. But yeah, I'm gonna see you the next time, I at least hope. So I wish you the best health, happiness, and also success, and also hope that you're gonna remind yourself and you're gonna be remembered, which basically means your legacy, and which basically also means just being a nice person and then being remembered as a nice person. 3 other questions that I'm having for you are: why are you here? What are you trying to change? And what is bothering you the most? These 3 are hopefully gonna show you your purpose and maybe even a business idea. And with that being said, I'm gonna see you the next time. I at least hope. I'll see you.